사랑하다가 나도 꽃이 되었네.
Hello and welcome to our morning edition of Arirang News. We begin with these stories making the headlines at this hour. President Lee Jae-myung is now in the United Arab Emirates, kicking off his 10-day trip to the Middle East and Africa. During his state visit, the president is set to hold a summit with the UAE leader on defense and AI cooperation, and also take part in a roundtable with business leaders. North Korea slammed the recently unveiled fact sheet between South Korea and the United States, warning of countermeasures. The regime especially criticized Washington's approval for Seoul to build nuclear-powered submarines, saying it will lead to a nuclear domino effect in the region. South Korea has formally proposed holding inter-Korean military talks to ease rising tensions along the border separating the two Koreas, following incursions by North Korean troops across the military demarcation line. Seoul says it hopes to clarify the official boundary and prevent repeated accidental clashes. We begin this morning with President Lee Jae-myung, who has now kicked off his four-nation trip to the Middle East and Africa. The president arrived in the UAE for a state visit escorted by fighter jets from the country. Our presidential office correspondent Yoon Jung-min files this report from Abu Dhabi.
President Lee Jae-myung has touched down in the United Arab Emirates for the first leg of his 10-day four-nation trip to the Middle East and Africa. He received a ceremonial welcome with two pairs of the UAE's fighter jets escorting Korea's Air Force One as it entered the country's airspace. President Lee started his three-day state visit to Abu Dhabi on Monday by visiting a war memorial to pay tribute to fallen service members. He also visited the Sheikh Zayed Grand Mosque to honor the UAE's founding president, accompanied by First Lady Kim Hae-kyung. On Tuesday, he will be hosted by his UAE counterpart, Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan, for summit talks, which will be followed by the signing of MOUs. Cooperation on AI, defense industry, nuclear energy, and culture will top the summit agenda. The UAE is the only country in the Middle East to have established a special strategic partnership with Korea, and the region is deemed crucial for South Korea's exports of key items. The following day, he will hold a roundtable with business leaders from the two countries, including Samsung Electronics chairman Lee Jae-yong. Lee also plans to visit the AK unit, a Korean military contingent stationed in the UAE. For President Lee, it's his first trip to the Middle East since taking office in June, with the focus on expanding Korea's diplomatic horizon. Yoon Jung-min, Arirang News, Abu Dhabi.
And wrapping up his first day in Abu Dhabi, President Lee Jae-myung also hosted a dinner with members of the local Korean community on Monday. In his opening remarks, the president described the United Arab Emirates as a base camp for South Korea's expansion into the Middle East and the wider Arab region. He pledged that South Korea and the UAE will open a new chapter of shared economic prosperity by combining their strengths in research, production, and entering developing markets. The president also vowed to build a nation that overseas Koreans can take greater pride in. So the president is now in the United Arab Emirates for his first trip to the Middle East since taking office in June. For more on this, we're joined today by Hassan Gun, visiting professor at Hankuk University of Foreign Studies. Professor Gun, thanks for joining us this morning.
Thank you. Always happy to be here.
So what do you think President Lee Jae-myung's trying to achieve throughout his visit to the Middle East?
I think this trip is very meaningful for President Lee Jae-myung because it's his first major outreach to the Middle East region since he became a president. I think there are a few things he's trying to accomplish there. First of all, he wants to broaden Korea's diplomatic relationship. And for a long time, as you know, Korea has focused its energy on having their diplomatic relationship only with China, U.S. and Northeast Asia. But the Middle East is becoming more and more important partner, and not only for energy, but for investment and technology. He's also very focused, I think, President Lee Jae-myung is very focused on economic diplomacy. Industries like AI, renewable energy, defense are areas where Korean companies are doing very well globally. And so this trip is really about opening new doors for Korean companies and Korean business to broaden their partnership in the Middle East. By visiting UAE, Egypt, and Turkey, I think he's showing that Korea is willing and willing to have a bigger voice in the region, which is very important in global politics.
Right, absolutely. And his first stop is the United Arab Emirates, and he will be holding a summit with the country's leader and also attend a business roundtable. What's on the agenda there?
A UAE visit is definitely the highlight of this tour. President Lee Jae-myung is meeting with President Mohammed bin Zayed, and they are going to discuss a wide range of issues. Defense cooperation is a big one, and strong interest in both sides to expand their joint projects and joint partnership, possibly signing new memorandums. But it's not just defense. They are also going to be talking about artificial intelligence, clean energy, and healthcare. There's going to be major business forums also where Korean big companies like Samsung and Hanwha will meet UAE's investors. UAE is actually the only Middle East country that has what's called a special partnership with Korea. So there is already a very strong foundation for cooperation and investment and more joint initiatives between the two countries.
Right, and speaking of defense cooperation, South Korea has already, exported a lot of weapons to the Middle Eastern countries already, including air defense systems like the Cheonggung-2 missile and K-9 howitzers. So what makes Korean defense systems and weapons so appealing to countries in this region?
To put it in very simple terms, Korean defense systems give the Middle East countries exactly what they need. So they are very high quality, they are affordable, and they are really affordable compared to Western alternatives, and they can be delivered quickly. And this is very important, which is extremely important for countries that has immediate threats. Another big reason is flexibility. Korean systems work very well with Western equipment. So, but Korea doesn't give them the strings attached, like political strings attached, human rights demands, like some European countries do or the United States do. So, Middle Eastern countries feel they have more room for maneuver. Also, diversifying it. Middle Eastern countries want to diversify their places where they get their weapons. So Korea is also willing to transfer technology to or share production with these countries. As you know, UAE, Saudi Arabia, Turkey, they are trying to build their own defense. So and Korea is looked at is seen as a very reliable partner in this process.
I see. And the presidential office says South Korea also hopes to expand cultural cooperation with the UAE, Egypt, and Turkey. How is Korean culture sort of viewed in these Middle Eastern countries?
Korean culture is extremely well received in Middle Eastern countries all over the region, in all these three countries, and you can really feel it in when you visit the region. You can see K-drama, K-pop, K-food, skincare. In the UAE, especially, you can see Korean film festivals and Korean culture festivals, and there are many programs for studying Korean and in these countries. In Egypt, it's not so different. The vibe is really stronger there. Many Egyptian students are studying Korean in universities, and many young people, especially young people, they dream of traveling to Korea and study or live in Korea. And this is precisely where President Lee's visit to Cairo University is so meaningful. He isn't just speaking to officials as usually. He's speaking directly to a generation which is already affected by Korea and affectionate by Korean through culture. His speech is a very good chance to deepen people-to-people ties, where Korean culture is already vibrant and growing in Egypt. In Turkey, it's the same. It's not so different. The K-pop fan communities are very incredibly vibrant. K-drama have a loyal following, so overall, Korean culture is a highly positive image and across the region, whether it's UAE or Egypt or Turkey or many other countries.
I see. That's really interesting how Korean culture is so popular in those Middle Eastern countries. All right, Professor Khan, thank you so much for your time and insight this morning. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you. Very good.
Thank you. Four days after South Korea and the United States released their joint fact sheet, North Korea issued a commentary denouncing it. Saying that the fact sheet shows confrontational stance against the regime, it warned of countermeasures. Our correspondent Kim Bo-kyung tells us more.
North Korea on Tuesday slammed the recently unveiled fact sheet and joint statement of the annual defense talks, the security consultative meeting between South Korea and the U.S. Pyongyang's official response comes 4 days after the documents were released last Friday. Saying such documents formalized Seoul and Washington's confrontational stance against Pyongyang, the commentary published by the North's Korean Central News Agency said the regime will take countermeasures to safeguard its own sovereignty. The commentary argued how the announcements from the summit helped the North clearly see the Trump administration's stance toward the regime. Particularly, the regime said U.S. reaffirming the goal of the North's complete denuclearization shows its confrontational intent to completely deny the regime's identity and existence. Regarding the part that said South Korea and the U.S. would cooperate to implement the 2018 North Korea-U.S. joint statement made in Singapore, Pyongyang said this showed the shameless side of Washington and said that the U.S. had scrapped and nullified past agreements. On the U.S. approval for South Korea to build nuclear-powered submarines, the regime criticized the move as a grave development that destabilizes not only the military and security landscape of the Korean peninsula, but the entire Asia-Pacific region. Calling South Korea's pursuit of nuclear submarines a stepping stone for its own nuclear armament, it warned that this will inevitably trigger a nuclear domino effect and spark arms races in the region. The fact that North Korea issued its reaction in the form of a KCNA commentary rather than a formal statement by a senior official suggests a calibrated response. Kim Bo-kyung, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, South Korea is calling for high-level military talks with North Korea as tensions rise along the demilitarized zone after repeated border incursions, with Seoul seeking to clarify the official boundary and prevent accidental clashes. Our Moon-hye-ryun has the details.
South Korea has formally proposed holding inter-Korean military talks to ease rising tensions in the demilitarized zone after repeated incursions by North Korean troops across the military demarcation line. According to a statement from the South Korean Defense Ministry on Monday, North Korean personnel have been laying mines and building tactical roads near the MDL, sometimes crossing into South Korean territory. In response, the South Korean military has carried out warning broadcasts and warning shots to ensure the North withdraws, following established operational procedures. The ministry says these repeated incursions have heightened tensions in the DMZ, raising concerns that they could trigger an unintended military clash. Officials attribute the problem in part to the loss of many MDL markers installed after the armistice agreement in 1953. Around 1,300 markers were installed when the agreement was signed, but now only 200 remain clearly identifiable. Previous efforts to maintain these markers, including repairs supervised by the UN in 1973, were halted after North Korean gunfire, and current maps now rely on coordinates verified with the U.S. National Geospatial Intelligence Agency.
Our military formally proposes holding inter-Korean military talks to prevent accidental clashes between the two sides and to ease military tensions, with the aim of discussing the establishment of a baseline for the MDL.
The presidential office also confirmed this statement, saying that many MDL markers have been lost and a proposal for talks has been made. Experts say this proposal underscores the urgent need to ease DMZ tensions and is a part of a broader effort to normalize military coordination and reduce miscalculation risks, as the first official dialogue offered by the Lee Jae-myung administration. The talks would be coordinated through the Joint Security Area in Panmunjom, though a specific schedule and venues are yet to be agreed. Since 2000, inter-Korean military talks have included 2 defense minister-level meetings, 10 general-level meetings, and 40 working-level meetings. But no high-level meetings have been held for more than 7 years since the 10th general-level meeting in October 2018. Officials emphasize that the absence of recent high-level discussions has left the MDL more vulnerable to misinterpretation. South Korea is calling for a swift response, saying the talks would help reduce tensions across the peninsula and improve mutual understanding of the border. Moon-hye-ryun, Arirang News.
In other news, new allegations have surfaced that Binance, the world's largest cryptocurrency exchange, may have been used to launder over $900 million in funds linked to North Korean hackers. According to the International Consortium of Investigative Journalists on Monday, transaction records show that roughly $900 million worth of stolen Ethereum flowed into 5 Binance accounts during the laundering process. Investigators say North Korea used a crypto exchange service known as ThorChain to convert the stolen Ethereum into Bitcoin. During the 10-day period when the laundering took place, transaction volumes for those 5 Binance accounts and ThorChain surged sharply, raising further suspicion. But it remains unclear whether the accounts in question are still controlled by North Korean operators. Now, shifting gears to China, Beijing has broadened its criticism of Tokyo, following Japanese Prime Minister Hanae Takaichi's suggestion that military action by China against Taiwan could justify a response from Japan. The Chinese Foreign Ministry even expanded its criticism to include Japan's false claims over South Korea's Dokdo. Our Lee Seung-jae has more.
Tensions between China and Japan have intensified once again as Beijing broadened its criticism of Tokyo. In the days following Japanese Prime Minister Sanai Takaichi's suggestion that military action by China against Taiwan could justify a response from Japan, China has been issuing strong rebukes.
Recently, the provocative remarks on Taiwan-related issues made by Japanese Prime Minister Sanai Takaichi have severely undermined the political foundation of China-Japan relations and made the public sentiment between the two countries deteriorate.
And now, in a rare move, Beijing has even expanded its criticism to include Japan's false territorial claims over Dokdo. At the regular briefing on Monday, Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Mao Ning was asked by state media to comment on the South Korean Foreign Ministry's protests last week when Seoul had launched a strong complaint against Tokyo's expansion of its territorial sovereignty expansion hall, which promotes Japan's false claim over Dokdo. The spokesperson responded by saying China has been following the reports closely, adding that Japan's recent hostile actions and rhetoric have triggered alarm, dissatisfaction, and protests from neighboring countries. She urged Japan to reflect seriously on its history of aggression, remain committed to a path of peace, and rebuild trust with Asian neighbors and the international community through concrete actions. Beijing has generally kept its distance from commenting on the Dokdo issue, but analysts interpret the criticism of Japan's hostile behavior as indirect support for South Korea. Other experts say this latest statement reflects China's effort to strengthen ties with another key neighbor in South Korea while escalating its dispute with Japan. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Good morning, I'm Choo Ji-hyun, and this is The World Now. Starting in Poland, where the country's prime minister has said that a powerful blast on a railway line leading towards Ukraine was, quote, an unprecedented act of sabotage. The explosion on Sunday morning tore through a section of track, forcing a train to stop before reaching the damaged gap. No one was injured. Authorities say the attack is being investigated as terrorist sabotage carried out on behalf of a foreign intelligence service, as Poland has faced a growing wave of sabotage attempts in recent years. A second incident on the same route later forced another passenger train to stop after damage was found on overhead lines. Officials say the probability of foreign involvement is, quote, very high, calling this one of the most serious threats to Poland's infrastructure in recent history. The government has convened its National Security Committee and ordered inspections along the rest of the line toward the Ukrainian border. In Bangladesh, former Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina has been sentenced to death for crimes against humanity linked to last year's student-led protests that forced her from power. A domestic war crimes tribunal found that during the unrest, she authorized lethal force which killed about 1,400 people. She was tried in absentia after fleeing the country. The verdict on Monday is being called a pivotal moment for the nation as families of the victims sought severe punishment. UN investigators say the killings may amount to crimes against humanity, but expressed opposition to the use of death penalty. Ukraine has signed a deal to obtain up to 100 French-made Rafale fighter jets over the next decade in a major step to strengthen its air defenses amid intensified Russian missile and drone attacks. The agreement is a political commitment, not a final purchase contract, and is expected to rely on European funding and potentially frozen Russian assets. France says the deal also includes advanced air defense systems, drones, and precision munitions to support Ukraine now and prepare for any future incursions once a peace deal is reached. Training for the advanced jets will take time, but both sides say that the long-term support is essential for rebuilding Ukraine's military. An Australian man has been sentenced to 9 days in jail after rushing at Ariana Grande at a premiere in Singapore. Prosecutors say Johnson Wen jumped a barrier at the premiere of Wicked for Good on November 13th and wrapped an arm around Ariana Grande before security intervened. when later bragged on Instagram, posting a video of the incident and thanking Grande, quote, for letting me jump on the yellow carpet. A judge said he had a pattern of disrupting high-profile events.
I hope you didn't regret not grabbing a warmer jacket this morning. Another surge of icy northern air moved in with temperatures dropping below freezing almost everywhere earlier in the day. We have a cold wave advisory in place across Gangwon-do and Chungcheong-pukto provinces, with the wind adding to the punch. And we could also see some wintry precipitation. Jeju's mountainous areas may see up to 5 centimeters of snowfall. Jeolla-pukto province might see some snow flurries. But don't worry, this round of cold snap will not stick around for too long. By Thursday, we're finally heading back toward more typical late autumn weather. But today is definitely a day for a heavy winter coat. Seoul gets up to 6 degrees, Daegu at 8 degrees Celsius under mostly sunny skies in most areas, except on Jeju Island. The island could see on and off wintry precipitation through Thursday, but the rest of the country will enjoy fairly sunny skies through the weekend with warmer temperatures.
That's all we have for this morning. Arirang News will be back at noon Korea time. Thanks for watching.
Korea, a globally recognized sports powerhouse. Behind the dazzling achievements, there's always an invisible force at work. With sophisticated materials, cutting-edge equipment, and innovative technological solutions, SMEs in the K-sports industry play a vital role in bolstering Korea's status as a sports powerhouse. By integrating AI technology, they unlock athletes' potential and enhance performance, elevating the sports environment to the next level and opening new markets in the sports industry. Their innovative technology and bold challenges drive the growth of Korea's sports industry, creating a better world through sports. The innovation of these SMEs never stops. A systematic partnership support program is implemented to discover promising sports SMEs, provide technical validation and R&D support to enhance competitiveness, and strengthen the foundation for overseas expansion. At Tokyo Sportech 2025, the technological prowess of Korean companies was recognized. The Ministry of Culture, Sports and Tourism, and the Korea Sports Promotion Foundation supported K-sports companies with product promotion and business consultations with global buyers, demonstrating product quality and market potential, and confirming the possibility of expanding into the global market.
저희는 ICT 강국으로서 바이어나 사용자들한테 신기술을 접목한 생활 스포츠 기회를 실질적으로 확대할 수 있는 그 기회를 제공하는데 많은 도움이 될 수 있으리라고 확신을 합니다.
이제 스포츠도 K죠. K 스포츠는 이겁니다.
The joy for all, created by the power of K-Sports. Experience the future of the new sports industry through the innovation and technology of the Korean sports industry.
Optimal industrial infrastructure, convenient transportation infrastructure, key secondary battery cluster, future industries, a center for marine tourism, livable residential environment, an investment hub for a better future. Gwangyang Bay Area Free Economic Zone.
We're here to bring a new type of news show.
New insights, new styles, and new topics every day.
We are News Generation.
Bringing news just for you. It's Tuesday, November 18th here in Seoul. I'm Lee Soo-jin, and this is News Generation. Joining us today is Kyun.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming in. Also, Taeyong's with us.
Good morning.
Good morning. And both are here to speak on behalf of people in their 20s and 30s. So we're on day 2 of the work week, and today we're taking a little detour to something a bit more personal and meaningful: gold rings. In Korean culture, these aren't just accessories. They mark life's big milestones like weddings or a baby's 100th day and first birthday celebrations. So I want to ask, have you ever received a gold ring as a gift or given one to someone special, Seo?
Well, actually, I haven't personally received a gold ring as a gift ever since I became an adult, but I did receive them as gifts for both of my children. And of course, when I was a baby, I probably received gold rings at my own first birthday celebration because that's a traditional part of Korean culture. And going back to my kids, for each of their first birthday celebrations, we kept it small and invited only immediate family members. But even with such a small gathering, both of my kids received gold rings and bracelets from grandparents, aunts, and uncles, and we were really thankful. But at the same time, I felt a little sorry for them because the gold prices were already high back then.
Oh, I see.
And what's interesting is that the price has continued to rise ever since, and we didn't sell them right away. We kept them carefully stored, and I'm truly relieved we did. And now when my kids become adults, I plan to give everything back to them just the way it was gifted. And from that moment on, it will be entirely their choice.
I mean, looking back,
so
I mean, even now it turns out it was a good investment. So I guess in the future it'll be even more worth it. And also, your hands, like your fingers, are really fancy today.
No gold, but
She has everything but gold. Pearls,
I have
diamonds.
everything but gold. So you wore like these. Some of them were wedding rings as well, right?
Yes.
Okay, that's really cool. So what about you, Q?
I don't have anything. But I think I did receive gold rings on my first birthday. Looking back at my pictures, but I think my parents sold them back then because I don't have them right now. Like Seong said, you know, she bought gold rings with her family members as well for her kids. But I guess back then, you know, giving gold rings to babies was very traditional. And it was actually my friend's second daughter's first birthday recently. And usually we give them handon, which is like 3.75 grams of gold ring to the babies. But right now, I think 1 gram of gold costs around $130 US, which is a little too much to get for a gift. So we had to go a bit more practical by giving them nappies, which is also very practical, expensive actually. It wasn't that cheap either. So I think 5 or 10 years ago, giving a gold ring of like 3.75 grams was okay. It was very affordable. But nowadays, that's not the case anymore. But for me, among my friends, for a special occasion like the first birthday of a child, giving a decent amount of cash or even like a thin gold card has become the new norm of giving gifts.
So we now live in a world where even small gold ring is becoming a luxury. So that really shows how much gold prices have gone up. So instead of rings, people are now giving gold cards or cash, which seems like a practical twist on their tradition. So we're going to discuss this further, but first, let's take a look at the screen. Jewelry has always been a popular gift for life's big milestones, from a baby's first birthday here in Korea to weddings both at home and abroad. These sparkling pieces have long been a way to celebrate and mark important moments in our lives. But while giving jewelry might seem like a no-brainer, skyrocketing gold prices are starting to change the way people think about these traditional gifts. Today on News Generation, we're taking a closer look at how the younger generations are redefining their jewelry preferences, what they think about classic wedding gifts, and sharing our own thoughts on these evolving trends. So as we just saw in the video, rising gold prices and shifting attitudes are reshaping how people choose and give jewelry. So what used to be a fairly traditional process, especially around weddings and major celebrations, is now influenced much more by personal taste, practicality, and economic reality young people are facing today. So with all that in mind, in today's tougher economy, how are jewelry trends changing, Seong?
Well, jewelry is generally seen as a non-essential purchase, so it's highly sensitive to the state of the economy. Right now, with gold prices high, it's still meaningful to celebrate special occasions with gold jewelry, but at the same time, young people also want something practical and stylish at the same time. That's why we're seeing trends like 10K and 5K gold pieces or gold rings in various colors and designs becoming especially popular among young couples. And even if the gold purity is lower, using gold still carries significance as a valuable asset, and it can serve as a way to commemorate important moments while offering a unique design. So for young people celebrating milestones, this balance of meaning, style, and practicality makes it a very appealing choice.
All this makes total sense. So when the economy is tough, people really start thinking about what feels worth buying, and jewelry becomes less about tradition and more about practicality and personal taste. And it's interesting how rising gold prices don't necessarily reduce demand, but instead shift it towards pieces that feel meaningful or financially smart, like pure gold items. So it really reflects how consumer priorities are changing. And even with these changing buying habits, there's one occasion where jewelry is still deeply symbolic and often seen as essential, which are weddings. So when it comes to weddings, how are younger generations rethinking traditional wedding jewelry, Q?
So In the past, talking about the past first, up until our parents' generation, wedding gifts are often extravagant and very expensive. They were considered as pieces that felt very flashy to wear, except on the actual wedding day. So diamonds, gold, and pearls were the typical choices, as these items not only symbolize love, but financial capability and, of course, like social status. Now, for the MZ generation, meaning has become a more important value than just actually owning one. So as a result, the long-standing tradition of giving highly expensive wedding jewelry is becoming a bit more simpler. Wedding rings as well are shifting away from these major brand names, as couples now prefer kind of custom-made or practical rings that carry personal meaning they can share together by actually heading to local jewelry stores rather than going to department stores where things are just too extreme and very, very expensive.
That was my case too. I went to Jeolla-do.
Oh, you went to Jeolla-do. That's a famous gold, I guess, street. They have that whole place that's just that sells gold rings and jewelry. Yeah.
Yes, that's right.
Looking back, what do you think about your choice?
Well, small part of me still wanted to go to the department store, but I have no regrets. I think we made a very reasonable and practical choice.
You know, for me, like I'm wearing my friendship ring today, and it's a bit different. But I thought it was really cool because we made it ourselves, and we were able to like write like on the ring itself. So I think like people said, like we were talking about, like meaning is also quite important too.
Friendship, as in like friend that's a girl, or
yeah. So I did it with a friend.
Are you sure about that?
So I think that was. I will show you later. And I think we're seeing that in the choices couples make today: custom rings, practical designs, and pieces they can actually wear every day. It's less about tradition for tradition's sake and more about choosing something that genuinely reflects their relationship. Another big change we're noticing is that even the material people choose is evolving. For decades, natural diamonds were basically the default for engagement or wedding jewelry, like Seung has on her fingers. But now there's a new option that younger buyers are really embracing. So can you tell us about this new type of diamond that's become popular, Seung?
Sure. Have you two heard of lab-grown diamonds?
I've heard of it, yeah.
I've heard of lab-grown rats.
Well, lab-grown diamonds, they are sometimes called the Gen Z diamonds. And the rise among young buyers is hard to ignore. Diamonds have long symbolized love and beauty that endures through the challenges. Their hardness, clarity make them the classic choice for engagement rings. Lab-grown diamonds, or LGDs, have the same minerals and chemical properties as natural diamonds, but they come at a more affordable price, which makes them very appealing. On top of that, they are produced in an environmentally friendly and ethical way without exploitation, which is especially important to many millennials and Gen Z buyers. And I personally got a traditional diamond ring when I married many years ago. But if I were getting married today, hopefully to the same guy, I would definitely consider a lab-grown diamond too. It's a choice that balances traditional meaning and modern values,
and also practical, right?
Yes.
So that's really interesting, especially the part what you said about lab-grown diamonds carrying the same qualities as natural ones, but at a much more affordable price. So I can see why that would appeal to younger buyers. And when we look at all of these shifts, from simpler wedding jewelry to the rise of lab-grown diamonds, it really makes you wonder what's driving this change. So what do you think is the biggest reason behind these changing jewelry trends, especially among the younger generations today, Kyung?
It has to be the financial burden. That's the biggest factor. With soaring housing prices, high living costs, the overall expense of getting married has become so large that many people feel it is kind of overwhelming to spend hundreds of thousands or even millions of won on wedding gifts or rings. And this burden is even greater amid broader social issues such as job insecurity. And another important factor is the MZ generation's preference for choices that reflect their individuality rather than simply doing what everyone else does or have been doing. Instead of following traditional procedures, they prioritize practical decisions that make sense for them. So some may choose to spend less on wedding gift jewelry and use it for their honeymoon to leave longer lasting memories. Others may save up on other costs that are involved in the wedding process, like maybe a wedding dress or like photo shoots and venues as well, and like just spend a bit more on their, I guess, wedding ring. So it's become very different compared to our parents' generation, where everything was just like very set and they had to follow those kind of social norms. If they didn't, like the marriage wouldn't happen. So it was between like pretty much two families, but now it's just become more individualistic, where it's just between the bride and the groom, and they come up with their own choices, and their parents actually respect the choices they have made.
What would you think is like more important than jewelry? What would you spend more money on?
Oh, that's a very hard question.
There's so many, right? There's housing.
So
you mentioned housing, honeymoon.
You have to think about the housing as well. The wedding also is very important because it happens just once in a lifetime. The ring as well, because it could be a source of investment as well. So
that's true.
There's so many things to consider. But I think being wise, the wisest choice is to actually talk it out with your significant other.
Yes.
And come up with a good solution, like a middle ground. And at the same time, you need to compromise and look at the bigger picture.
That's very well said, well said. So can you think of any other reasons driving this?
First of all, I completely agree with what Ki-yoon has just shared. And I think the main reasons behind this changing jewelry trends are economic considerations, a desire for individuality, and a mindset that values being true to oneself. And if we look at it more positively, I see this as a sign that young couples are placing deeper meaning or preparing a future together rather than focusing solely on material things. And it doesn't mean that the depth of love, their love has diminished. Rather, their approach has evolved to be more practical and realistic, reflecting a love that's thoughtful and grounded in everyday life.
Yeah, it's really fascinating to see how tradition adapts without losing its core significance. Love and commitment are still at the center, just expressed differently. And speaking of evolving traditions, we also wanted to get an international perspective on this. So for more on this, we're going to speak with someone from another country about her thoughts on the changing jewelry trends, especially when it comes to weddings. And that conversation will take place right after the break, so don't go anywhere.
NewsGen wants to hear from you. Go to YouTube and search out channel Arirang News. Click Posts and cast your vote in the poll. Make a new type of news with us.
Joining us today is Adriana, who's originally from Italy, a country where wedding gift ideas are also evolving. Hi, Adriana. Thank you so much for connecting with us today.
So nice to be here.
Good to have you. So to get right into it, so can you tell us what kind of wedding gifts are given and received in Italy? How are they similar to or different from those in Korea?
If you talk about the guests, usually they give money, which I think is the best gift for weddings. But when we talk about, because I also know that in Korea is quite a culture to give each other families gifts, and also to the bride and the groom give each other a gift as well. We don't really have that culture. So we only exchange wedding rings, which is just a simple golden band. So we don't even use diamond in it. It's very simple. And we don't even have a propose culture. So we don't even have a different ring for the propose. So I guess it's less strict than Korea. We don't really gift a lot of jewelry.
Okay, ciao, Adriana. So in the future, if you when you get married, what kind of wedding gifts do you want to receive or give?
From the guest, as I was saying a while ago, I think the best gift would be money because, for a newly married couple, that would help a lot with a new start. But from my husband or from my husband's family, I'm fine. Like, I don't need to receive any gift, or otherwise I would be also stressed about what to give back, and a lot of money are going to be involved. So it's okay. I don't need to receive any gift.
All you need is love.
Exactly.
All right, last question to you, Adriana. Some people, might feel that leaving out wedding gifts can be a little disappointing. So what is your take on that? And personally, what do you think matters the most when it comes to wedding gifts?
I think that in Korea, especially, weddings prices are already very high, and couples already have a lot of pressure on them about having a big wedding, and especially from the family. I think they kind of force them to follow a lot of traditions or like doing it in a certain way. So as you were saying a while ago, I think that when we talk about weddings, the only thing that matters is talking with with your husband or with your wife and just decide step by step what you really want. Don't do anything for others. And just, if you're economically already not ready to give this kind of big gift, it's okay just to skip this kind of old traditions. So I think it's very smart from Korean new, the generation couples to skip this kind of tradition. It's okay. You don't need to have this kind of big gift.
I agree. I think it's really important to figure out and to have a good conversation with your partner and think about what really is important to both of them. So great. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Okay. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you.
So we just heard from a young person from Italy about wedding gift traditions are evolving among the younger generations there and how she personally plans to approach her own gifts in the future. We also want to hear from our viewers about what they think of these changing jewelry and gift trends for special occasions. So we asked on the Arirang News YouTube channel, what do you consider the most important factor when choosing wedding gifts? So according to the survey, 80% of respondents had personal meaning for the couple, making it by far the top consideration. Price came next at 14%, followed by brand at 4% and other factors at 2%. So it's clear that for most people, the meaning behind the gift matters far more than the price or brand, and that really shows how weddings are becoming more personal and focused on the couple rather than just tradition or status. And 80% prioritize personal meaning, which really highlights how the younger generations value thoughtfulness and sentiment over luxury or labels. And these results make a lot of sense. At the end of the day, it's a story and significance behind the gift that truly counts, not how expensive it is. So since you're not married yet, but I'm sure you hope to be someday, how do you feel about these changing jewelry trends for weddings and other celebrations, Kyun?
I totally understand the changing shifts, and yes, I hope to get married very soon. But it's always good to look into these current trends if you know you're going to follow the similar steps of others. But at the same time, instead of doing exactly what others are doing, I think staying true to yourself and being a bit more realistic is really important, and it can actually help you go further into the relationship in the long run. And I think if you can afford it, why not? I don't see why you can't go overboard by adding another digit to the price tag of wedding gifts. I mean, it can become more meaningful in some sense. I'm not saying money is everything, but it is significant to have a better looking diamond ring because you want to feel happy and proud of who you're meeting. And I know, I think it's like, as long as it keeps you afloat, like if it's expensive, if you can afford it, go for it. If you can't, and if both of you can understand that, that's totally fine. So right now, like I said, gold is seen as an investment, golden haven. So who knows how much gold will cost 10 years later. So if you want to think of it as an investment as well, why not spend that extra money? Yeah.
There's no right answer for this. And as someone who's married, thinking about your own experience, Hae-young, and what you've seen in others, what do you feel is the best approach to wedding jewelry and gifts?
Well, first of all, I'm not a big fan of the very former traditions around wedding gifts and jewelry in Korea, which is called 예물 or 예단. Of course, every family has their own values, and that's perfectly fine. But I think this custom shouldn't make wedding preparations more stressful for a young couple. And I was fortunate that our parents respected our choices, so we kept things simple. We just our wedding rings and watches, and used the rest to prepare our home with the furniture and essentials we'd really need. And that said, I understand a wedding is a once-in-a-lifetime moment. It's so natural to have some dreams for that day. But the key is finding a balance that fits the couple's need and budget, of course. And after all, what matters most isn't the ceremony or the jewelry, but how the couple builds their life together afterward.
Well said, well said. So whether you go big with traditional gold, opt for a lab-grown diamond, or keep things simple and personal, today's younger generation is really defining what these gifts represent. So at the end of the day, it's less about tradition for tradition's sake and more about choosing something that really fits your life. And while it's easy to compare yourself to what other couples or families are doing and what social media says you should have, it's so much healthier to stay grounded in what actually matters to you, because what's really important isn't the brand or how impressive it looks, it's the reason behind the gift. And if the
meaning is there, then the gift, no matter what it is, becomes something truly special. So that brings us to the end of today's episode of News Generation. When News Gen will be back tomorrow at 10:30 a.m. Korea time with more stories and discussions. A big thanks to Kyun.
Always a pleasure.
다음에 어서 오세요.
Thank you for having me.
For joining us today. And to our viewers, thank you so much for tuning in, and we hope you have the best day. We are News Generation.
That all the meals here serve as a foundation of its practices. The process of making a meal requires deep interconnectedness. And being thankful for the effort is the first step forward. Tastes rendered by time, scented by nature, temple food is made with the wisdom of its practitioners, and it's a peaceful meal to fill your heart. Gratitude is the core of the practice. The refrain from the 5 pungent ingredients supports mental clarity and mindfulness.